The film begins by introducing a boy named Hallam. Hallam goes about his days with the labels of a quiet kid or a loner, especially after his mother passed away. Fortunately, Hallam still has his father named Julius, who married a woman named Verity shortly after his wife's death. This is what makes Hallam miss his mother even more, and the only one-sided connection he has is with Lucy, his sister. Hallam spends most of his time in a treehouse they built with his mother. His daily activity involves writing a diary about his feelings and life experiences. He keeps his diary in a box that also contains mementos from his time with his mother. Occasionally, he wanders around a lake where he and his mother used to hang out. In essence, he deeply misses his mother because his treehouse is in the middle of a dense forest, making it unlikely for anyone to visit, but as fate would have it, Hallam catches sight of a couple near his treehouse. Hallam, dressed like Tarzan, captured and chased away the couple in a barbaric manner. This infuriated the young man, who left in anger. During a dinner, it seemed that Hallam truly disliked his stepmother because he felt that her position could never replace his mother's. However, the essence of that dinner was a farewell to his sister who would be leaving for a journey the next day. Hallam felt sad because the only person on his side was about to depart. But there was nothing else to do except sleep in his treehouse, gazing at a photo of his mother, and hoping she would always be with him. The next morning, his sister left, but Hallam intentionally stayed in his treehouse, finding it too difficult to bid farewell to Lucy. At that moment, Hallam changed his mind and attempted to say goodbye, but Lucy was already too far away and out of reach. During lunch, Hallam's father and stepmother, along with Hallam himself, discussed plans for Hallam's future. However, Hallam refused because he knew it was just Verity's deceitful scheme. After the lunch, his father invited Hallam for a walk and a conversation. During this, Hallam mentioned that his mother's death seemed very suspicious, and he believed that Verity had a hand in it because her boat had holes, as if someone intended to harm her. Eventually, Hallam tried to prove his conspiracy theory regarding his mother's death. He searched through some documents in his house while everyone was asleep. However, all of it proved to be futile, and afterward, Hallam returned to his treehouse. However, in the treehouse, there were the two couples that Hallam had interrupted earlier in the movie. Hallam didn't dare to enter and chose to wait until they left. When they were gone, Hallam found his treehouse in a complete mess, and his mother's photo had been scribbled on. Luckily, the box containing Hallam's diary and his mother's keepsakes remained undamaged. The next day, Hallam attempted to secure the box inside a cupboard in his house. However, he left the key behind while eagerly answering a call from his sister. Verity found the key and opened the box. She then read Hallam's diary, which contained intriguing information, and she couldn't resist making copies of pages that seemed somewhat contradictory to Hallam's behavior towards her. Afterwards, Verity approached Hallam in his treehouse. She asked for permission to go up there, but Hallam refused. Verity, disregarding his refusal, eventually climbed up to the treehouse. There, she read the contents of Hallam's diary, which turned out to be expressions of Hallam's admiration for his stepmother's beauty. In fact, his writing contained somewhat suggestive passages expressing his desires for Verity. Verity, having understood Hallam's inner turmoil, gave him advice on moving on from the grief of his mother's death. However, Hallam accused Verity of being involved in his mother's death. Verity, who had done nothing wrong, laughed at the accusation. This infuriated Hallam, and he almost took Verity's life. In his near-death state, Verity reluctantly teased Hallam. "It's clear that you probably know what happened next." Verity, aware of the events that had transpired, urged Hallam to quickly move on with his life in the city on his own. Hallam, enlightened by his stepmother, eventually agreed to relocate to the city. Hallam, who left without a clear purpose, wandered aimlessly in the city. He took refuge in a generator room and woke up surrounded by rats. When Hallam woke up, he was genuinely surprised to see a woman who looked exactly like his mother. He followed the woman until he reached her workplace, which turned out to be a luxury hotel where she worked in human resources. Hallam continued to stare at the woman, which eventually made her realize his presence. Hallam, in a moment of spontaneity, said that he was looking for a job. The woman then gave him her business card so that he could apply for a job. However, Hallam didn't leave right away and continued to gaze at her. This made the woman feel sympathy, and she immediately offered Hallam a job as a kitchen assistant. After work, he continued to follow the woman, and it turns out the woman named Kat. Hallam kept following her from behind, and eventually, it became a routine for him. One day, Hallam realized that the woman wasn't in her apartment, so he broke in. There, he realized that he could also spy on her from a distance, specifically from the top of the hotel where he worked. The next day, during his working hours, Hallam started going up to the hotel's rooftop. But even that wasn't enough for Hallam. He also continued to visit her apartment to observe directly from above. One night, he had a strong sense of unease and saw Kat having intimate with a married man, her boss at work. It turned out that Kat, who worked in human resources, had a side job as a call girl. Disappointed, Hallam tried to forget about the woman and returned to contemplating his mother. Hallam then went to the police station and filed a report, alleging that his stepmother had killed his biological mother by sabotaging the boat she was on. Afterward, he returned to work. While at work, Hallam secretly went up to the rooftop to observe Kat. Unbeknownst to him, he was caught by his boss. His boss reprimanded Hallam and threatened to report him, but Hallam turned the tables by revealing their affair with Kat, as it turned out that the person seen with Kat was his boss. The boss immediately fired Hallam, and he returned home with a blank expression. However, that night, the boss returned home and saw Hallam playing with his wife and child. Hallam once again threatened his boss, and reluctantly, Hallam was allowed to return to his previous job. He worked diligently and tirelessly, impressing Kat with his performance. Hallam was eventually promoted and believed to be working in a front office. Seeing Hallam's consistent improvement, Kat was impressed and decided to pursue a relationship with him. She initiated it with congratulations and celebrating Hallam's birthday. However, luck was on Hallam's side as all his friends left early, leaving him alone with Kat. Kat invited Hallam to her apartment with the intention of doing hormone activities, but the naive Hallam declined and only wanted to cuddle. With that incident, she apologized to Hallam. However, Hallam eventually gathered the courage to express his feelings to Kat. Afterward, Hallam became even more diligent in his work because he found motivation both in his workplace and in his personal life. The two of them continued to be together. One day, while Hallam was working, he was called by his friend because Hallam's parents had come there. Julius intended to sell their house due to an appealing project. However, upon investigation, Hallam learned that Julius wanted to sell the house because he was entangled in debt. Hallam was disappointed with his father because the house was his mother's legacy. Hallam began to suspect that his father was in debt because of Verity's actions. Consequently, Hallam had the intention to murder Verity. Hallam decided not to go through with his plan to kidnap his stepmother and drown her in the lake, as he remembered the consequences of the law and the fear of facing the death penalty. He ultimately chose not to take her life. Hallam was then approached by his father, who finally revealed the true sequence of events leading to his mother's death, which had no connection to Verity. Hallam finally accepted the reality of his mother's passing. He returned to the city with the intention of pursuing a serious relationship with Kat. Unfortunately, Kat had already found a new partner, and Hallam was not allowed into her apartment anymore. The film concluded with Kat expressing that they were not destined to be together, as Hallam was still too young, and his journey was far from over. The film ended with Hallam's disappointment.